Q&A for box 2. And so there probably might be a number of questions here. Any questions before we kind of dive into, you know, more detail on this and why this can get complicated really, really fast? Don, any questions you have?
No, I don't have any questions because, like you said, it sounds very simple. And, yeah, I've been trying to live it myself, and so I do get the iterations, and I do have some understanding of what the complications can be for just about anybody. And, I mean, as far as my take from the key thing for me is threefold. One, you have to be laser-like focused on all of these, the detail, like that you were talking about, and it needs to be put into a system that you continually develop as time goes on. And the key factor in all of it is consistency. That you do it over a long enough period of time to get the results that you're looking for. But most people, they will do something for 2 or 3 months, not see any kind of real results from it, and will stop doing it and try, you know, something else that's shiny.
Right. Jeff, thoughts, questions you have?
I need to get to that point. I don't have any thoughts or questions right now.
Okay. Ski, questions, thoughts you have?
Yeah, you know, Mark, you made me think of something that I saw a while back about the potential. Most loan officers are looking for or even any salesperson looking for the person who's ready to buy immediately, when in the potential, the latent prospects that need to be developed is huge. And as you're right, having a system to do that is extremely important. My question is, how many managers, executives, have any idea of what stage their salespeople are at doing this correctly?
Well, Tom, he had 140,000 sales agents in over 70 different countries. And he said, when he saw this, he's like, you got to be kidding. He's like, we don't have area 2. Like, oh my gracious, like, you know, so there you have the largest real estate franchise in the world, and they don't know how to do it. And so most companies, a lot of salespeople, they have to do marketing, pre-sales, and sales, and, you know, that's not working out so well. They could double or triple their productivity and lower their cost and lower their effort, everything by doing this and having this done. So, yeah, not very many. Other thoughts or questions, Ski?
No, that's my thoughts at this point.
Allison, questions or thoughts you have?
So we're talking about kind of like grading these prospects, right? Whether they're ready to buy now or sometime in the future, right?
Correct.
Uh-huh.
So the 169 prospects that you've had, was that over the last 6 months or 12 months, Allison?
Okay, yeah.
No, I'm sorry. The 169 prospects you talked about last week, were those 169 over the last 6 months or 12 months that you have that haven't converted?
So I have kind of like maybe 5 who is ready right now.
Sure. Right. So you have 164 leads over the last 6 months. I'll just call it 6 months because I don't know if it's 6 months or 12 months. So last week you came and you said you had 169 leads, right?
I think it's probably, yeah, within 12 months.
Okay, 12 months. Okay. So 169 leads in 12 months. And what's your average commission?
25.
So 169,000 times 25,000. So that's $4.2 million of business that's just waiting there to be had. So we haven't gotten to it yet, but what you're looking for is, I'll show on the screen here, is you're looking for what's called a strategic strike. And so by partnering with Don to be able to do that, what are the two reasons, Allison, you believe that, people, you're successful? Why do people work with you, Allison?
They trust me. Probably I bring value.
Okay. So of those 164, how many of those would you like, and I'm not volunteering for Don, I'm not saying he'll do it, he can do it, this costs time, money, resources, systems, bandwidth, all that. I'm just saying if Don were willing and able to help you with those, how many of those 164 leads that haven't converted would you like Don to go ahead and say, hey, just wanted to introduce myself to you. Allison, mentioned that you might be, in the market for a home. One of the things I find about Allison, I've been in the industry, worked with a lot of, top-level people. One of the things I find most interesting about Allison is she is so trustworthy, and the value she brings to her clients are just amazing. How many of those 164 people would you like Don to, share that with them? Did we lose you? We might have lost Allison. I'm not sure.
Can you hear me?
I can now.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, I don't mind partnering with Don.
Okay. So you probably want Don to say that to all 164, right?
Sure.
Yeah, because if you say it about yourself, I'm really trustworthy, I bring value, not that you shouldn't say it, but they don't really believe you. But when you get a third party saying that, baking that into the system, if you get other parties, and if you and Don bring on a, partner up with a CPA, or an insurance agent, or somebody else, like a community group or something like that. If you form a team and you have 2, 3, 4 people all saying the same thing about you, like if you had a financial planner that connected with them and say, hey, Allison said you might be interested in, this, and one of the things I found about Allison, she's so trustworthy and the value she brings. If you can find 2 or 3 or 4 other people that are saying that about you, people will start to believe it. You're going to start to convert. And even if you only converted 10% of those 100, if Don helped you convert 16 of those, that would go ahead and be $400,000. So you can leverage, again, I'm not volunteering for Don. It takes work, time, energy. So you'd need to talk to Don, and you guys sit down, bring the 164 leads, have it printed out in an Excel document or however you track it. If it's on sticky notes, doesn't matter. However you track those 164, get all those leads, and you and Don go over those 164. Take the top 5 or 10 that you want him to address, right away, that are going to most likely help you the most, and then take the rest of them and then talk about what kind of a strategy, if Don's willing to do that. And again, once he sees them, goes over them, then he can make a determination if he wants to, if he's able to go ahead and help you. Does that make sense, Allison?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Anyone have any questions on this? See,
I do.
Yeah.
I do. Hi, it's Jennifer.
Hey, Jennifer.
Okay. Hi there. How are you?
Good.
So I'm listening in. I obviously am not able to see the slides, but and I'm just, as I'm taking it in and thinking how I can relate this to my, my end of the business, if you will. So Don would follow up as the lender, or just kind of reinforcing. That's the idea of teaming up and just kind of reinforcing the message about the trust, and you work together, and if there's anything I can help with to kind of move the process along, is that's what you're suggesting?
It's that plus more. So there's what's called a subconscious brand. So big companies spend millions of dollars on branding. Typically,
Right.
Entrepreneurs, salespeople in mortgage or real estate, an individual loan officer, an individual realtor, a CPA, financial planner, they typically don't spend any money on a brand, which is fine. I mean, I'm not saying they should or shouldn't, but they still have a brand. So if you ask anybody, so Don, what would be the 2 reasons you think people do business with you?
One is very knowledgeable, and
Yep.
2 is very trustworthy.
Okay. So Don's, subconscious brand is knowledge and trust. Allison's is trust and value. If somebody were to ask me, Mark, what would be the 2 reasons people do business with you? I'd say, because I work really hard. Like, I'm a hard worker. And 2 is I produce results and do what I say I'm going to do. Like, integrity is just, like, he just always follows through. Like, always. He's a machine. So each of us have our own brand. Now, that doesn't mean that's why people do business with me, but those are the things that I value the most, those 2 things. And so if Allison starts to say, knowledge and trust, so if you get 2, 3, 4 people, so it's subconscious. I don't know if you're familiar with NLP, Jennifer, neuro-linguistic programming.
No.
Okay.
Sorry, you were on mute.
Yeah, so neuro-linguistic programming, Tony Robbins is big into it, a number of people, other people. So it's a subconscious in movement of people. It is manipulation, but it's not bad. It's just getting alignment from where people are at. And so if I tell, if somebody said, why do you really love working with Don? It's like, I would say, the guy, he never quits. Like, he's like the, ever ready bunny. Like, he never quits. He sticks with stuff. Well, if I said that, it's good, but it's not the same that Don would want me to say. Don wants me to say knowledgeable and trust. Knowledgeable. He wants everybody to say knowledgeable and trust, because then people will go ahead and get that brand. So the subconscious brand, based on different university studies, the average number of contacts it takes to make a sale is somewhere between 6 and 10 contacts. Those same researchers researched the average salesperson, and the average salesperson makes 1 to 2. And so, I mean, this is not brain surgery or rocket science. If it takes 10 contacts to make a sale, we make 9. How much money do we make? Nothing. We've done 90% of the work. But almost everybody's been in a real job before they go into sales or own their own company. So if we're an employee and we do, 70% of the work, how much do we get paid? 100%. I've never had an employee come back to me and say, Mark, I only gave you 70% today. You don't have to pay me 100%. Employees think in a very different way. And so salespeople still have that employee remnant where I've got, I did it pretty good. No, you got to do 10 if you're going to do 10. So you got to have systems to do it. Tom Kuntz went ahead and did study at Century 21, and they generated, 200,000 leads a month or something. It was huge. And he researched the ones that were falling through the ones that, and the broker owner had to say it was a bad lead. The manager had to say it was a bad lead, and the agent. 3 people had to say it was a bad lead. And so Tom researched, 10,000 of these leads at outside independent researching company, and I don't know what the numbers was. Something like like 30% of the bad leads that, the three people said they were bad leads, 30% of them went with the competition. They weren't bad. They went with somebody else. I think it was like 50% of the leads were still looking, and only 20%, 10 or 20% were bad leads. And so we have to have systems in place. And so one of the things, Jennifer, that you can do that would help the most is to get somebody like Paul Weiner or Ski or Don or all three of them or whatever. Janae's a great one too. There's individuals that know how to present this stuff and do a seminar and teach, because nobody's teaching this. Now, once you teach it, you still have to have systems. And somebody's got to architect and engineer those systems, and that's not easy to do. And then, even if you have the system, somebody's got to work the system. And in my experience, Jennifer, most people don't work the systems very good. It's why I contract with EVAs, Executive Virtual Assistants, because they're trained in how to build the systems, they're trained in how to work the systems, and so they know how to do it. So it's really simple, but it's really complex, and so people need to just do 1 + 1 first. Okay, do I touch them 10 times? If I'm not touching them 10 times, well, you know what? So I got to get it into a database. I've got to go ahead and then, I've got to identify the targets. I've got to develop and deliver message. I've got to track 100% leads. I've got to either drive them into sales or drive them into a strategic strike program, which is box 5. So
Mark, I'd like to just kind of interject a thought there, in that you're saying that it can be complex stuff. The mechanics of what you're talking about here actually are very simple, because it can all be put down on a checklist. I mean, it's really, really simple. To me, the key is that the information is not tracked 100%. That's to me, the focal point, where one day you wake up and you just aren't feeling that well, and so you don't get things into your system. There has to be, and that's why maybe the EDA or other assistants come into play, where you need to have somebody that's a machine that will do all the, kind of the methodical, tedious work of keeping track of this sort of stuff. And it really, when you were talking about it originally, actually the first thing that came to my mind or brought up, and I hadn't heard about it for a while, was the poem of For the Want of a Nail. Are you familiar with that?
I am not.
Ah. So I think that it's in regards to or relationship to 100% tracking. It's a fairly short poem, so let me just read it to you. For the want of a nail, the shoe was lost. For the want of the shoe, the horse was lost. For the want of the horse, the rider was lost. For the want of the rider, the battle was lost. For the want of the battle, the kingdom was lost. And all from the want of the horseshoe nail.
So I wish individuals could internalize that poem like I can, or like Don can, or like Tom Kuntz can.
I think it really drives home that concept, and that's what sticks in my mind throughout years that I've heard this, things along these lines. That poem comes right back up in my head.
So it's what Tom said when he was on the aircraft carrier. And he's like, Mark, the average age of somebody on the aircraft carrier is 19 years old. And he went into the radar room and he was introduced, to the guy, and he says, what's your role? Introduced, and the 18-year-old kid says, this is my role and my with responsibilities. And he said, I look at this screen and there's 3 rings. If somebody goes ahead and if there's a bleep on that screen, this happens. If there's another, if it goes into the second screen, this is what happens. And Tom's like, what if it passes that, third line? He says, I press this button. And he's like, what happens then? They die. And he's like, just like that? And he's like, yep, just like that. They're dead. What if it's Air Force One? Doesn't matter. They're dead. They pass that line without it's. And he said every single person. Same thing is true with NASA. The janitor, I don't know if it was Tom or somebody else, went ahead and talked to a janitor at NASA and said, you know, what's your role? He knows my job of emptying the garbage, put somebody on the moon, put somebody in a space shuttle. Every single piece of that system matters. Nice poem. Love it, Don. Could you send that to me?
Yeah, actually, you can just Google it. It's called For the Want of an Ale.
Cool. Anyone have any other questions? See, the thing is, it's mindset. It's mindset. It's teaching a mindset. It's disciplined people, disciplined thinkers, discipline in taking action. When people say nobody's perfect, they're not for box 3. I went ahead and saw for the third time Ford versus Ferrari last night with Paul Weiner. And they were talking about the perfect lap. And the son asked the dad, and because the son said, you know, I don't know how many hundreds or thousands of laps there are. He said, well, Dad, you can't have a perfect lap every lap. He said, no, son, but I can try. And so it's mindset. This is the thing that's not being trained in seminars or workshops or even in coaching, sadly, to say it's pump up, motivate, inspired, but people aren't teaching the disciplines of the system. You have to go ahead and nail it 100% of the time. All right, we'll go ahead. We have a little extra time, so we'll take a 5-second pause here and go into the bonus session for anybody who wants to and can stay around. So here we go. Okay, we're in the bonus session here today. Any questions on anything we've covered on box 1, 2, or 3, or any topic of anything that any of you have?
Mark, this is Ski. How soon will the recording of this be available?
Week is the maximum. 1 week is the maximum that it takes. And generally, typically they try to turn around in 3 days or so.
Okay. Very good. Thanks.
Other questions?